Hello, everyone. Here's your weather hazard briefing for Saturday, October 22nd. And believe it or not, the rain, snow, and wind has finally arrived. And the warm weather we've had, it looks like it's out of here for quite a while. Looking at what we're looking for today, gusty winds. Not as strong as yesterday, but there'll be some gusty winds around, and that'll cause some blowing snow up in the high country. I don't think we're going to have to worry about blowing dust, at least it doesn't look like at this point down across the Snake Plain today. We have that rain and snow shifting southward as we speak, and that will continue throughout the day. We continue to have winter storm warnings in effect above 7,000 feet, 8 to 14 inches of snow across our central and eastern highlands and mountains. Locally higher amounts once you get way, way up there. Light snow elsewhere. We'll be watching for one of these, it's that time of year, convergence bands across the Snake Plain for Saturday night, and Sunday morning. Then we get a break Sunday into Monday. It's going to be pretty darn cold across the area Monday morning. And then we have off and on rain and snow and wind returning for the rest of the week. But promise this, it's not going to get very warm across the region. Satellite already showing this storm working inland. Out ahead of that, a huge band of clouds and rain and snow and the wind. The wind's let up a little bit in a lot of areas, but it'll pick back up later on this morning into this afternoon, especially where we get this clear slot working in on the backside of this low. Looking at the weather risk outlook, we have our winter storm warnings for the higher elevations today and into tomorrow. That is where we're going to see the worst of the wind and the rain and the mountain snow. Those snow levels will be dropping during the day. We won't see them all the way to valley floors across the entire region until after sunset this evening. For tomorrow, we still have winter storm warnings in the mountains. We have a little better chance of rain and snow, like I said, for like the Snake Plain and the Magic Valley, the South Hills, with that potential convergence band moving through. Otherwise, more rain and snow showers Monday, Tuesday, and a better chance coming in, it looks like right now, for Wednesday. So how are things looking out there today? How are they going to progress? We've got this band of precipitation working through the main band this morning from the Magic Valley up through the Snake Plain into the eastern highlands, making and taking its time getting into the southeast corner. Now, a lot of this is taking its time reaching the ground. It's been very, very dry for a lot of us for quite a while. So in the lower elevations, it's really taking its time getting down enough moisture down low to actually start precipitating for it to start raining. As we go through the day, you'll notice we continue to clear out over the central mountains, but this big area of precipitation continues over the southeast corner. Going into later on this morning, you see showers as the main low moves to the east, entering the central mountains. Our main band by around noon, basically from Island Park, Monida Pass, down to Idaho Falls, down to Burley, off to the south and to the east, where we get that clear slot coming up the Snake Plain this afternoon. It will be quite breezy across the region. We get into the afternoon hours. More showers over the central mountains, also coming across from the Owyhees through the Treasure Valley into the Magic Valley, and that big area of precipitation across the southeast corner continuing. Now, this is where the forecast gets a little less certain for this evening. We have our convergence band developing across the far upper part of the plain, basically from Monida Pass, West Yellowstone, Island Park, down to almost Arco, going into this evening. The first part of that shifts to the east. We still see it spreading and developing across the far upper part of the Snake Plain. The question will be how far south it gets and whether it will be one solid line or a band of showers working through the area. And the more broken that line of showers is, the less likely we have some heavier widespread snowfall coming as that drops to the south. Going into this evening, you can see overnight that pushes down through Idaho Falls, Rexburg, Blackfoot into Pocatello, back over to Craters of the Moon. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Some of the models want to take this all the way down to Burley, into portions of the Wood River Valley before it starts shifting off to the south and to the east. Other models really don't bring it past Rexburg or even Idaho Falls. So this is kind of a good in-between model that we're looking at here. This is just one forecast and one potential what we could see with that. Wherever this band sets up, it'll look very similar going into the overnight hours into early tomorrow morning. It eventually will set up across the benches from Rexburg to Pocatello down to Burley. It'll eventually get there. We go into tomorrow morning. That starts to shift to the south. This starts to dissipate. We go into the afternoon. We have another little upslope band from Pocatello up through Rexburg into the Teton Valley. Also, with this northwest flow, we'll be watching bands aligning with the ridge tops, the ranges over the central mountains, spreading into the Snake Plain, going into tomorrow. And then as we go into tomorrow night, we quickly dry out across the region. So back to the forecast at hand. For this morning, you can see most of the snowfall above 7,000 feet in the central mountains, and with that band shifting to the south and to the east, some rain and snow in the highest elevations of the South Hills, the Albion Mountains across the southeast and eastern highlands, and certainly over in the Tetons. As we go through the morning hours, these winds will pick up across the ridge tops especially, but 30 to 40 mile an hour gusts across the Snake Plain are expected for this morning. Into this afternoon, the winds die out over the central mountains. They really don't die out much from the Snake Plain off to the south and to the east. We see the snow levels dropping, a little more snow pushing into the higher elevations of the southern and eastern highlands, also continuing up in the higher elevations around Island Park and the Centennials as well. Into this evening, this is where we start to see the snow dropping to the valley floors. You can see the initial light snow across the Snake Plain, especially across the INL. These winds start to die off, and what happens when we talk about convergence bands, the winds turn out of the north or out of a northerly direction coming across the divide or across out of the central mountains. And when that happens, and wherever those winds turn northerly and how far south and west they get, that determines where we'll see this convergence band going. But you'll notice, going back a little bit, quite a bit of snow this morning and this afternoon, starting to wind down in the central mountains, continuing up around the Island Park area over into the Tetons, lighter amounts. And you'll see as we go into the overnight hours, light snow. We're not expecting a whole lot across the Snake Plain. Now, this is the most likely forecast. There's about a 50-50 shot wherever that band sets up, that convergence band, we may see 1 to 2 inches, and only about a 10 to 25% chance we see over 2 inches with that band. So the most likely forecast, there'll be some snow, there'll be some light accumulations, especially on the colder surfaces in the overnight hours. You can continue to see the winds decreasing, but still some gusts, 15 to 25, maybe 30. That may be enough, especially up in the mountains, for a little bit of blowing snow continuing overnight. And into tomorrow morning, we have snow along the 86-15 corridor, light snow continuing off into the southern and eastern highlands. Not much across the rest of the plain on up into the central mountains. Going into tomorrow, you'll notice the snow continues to die out. And like we said, tomorrow afternoon, we get some of these bands coming off the central mountains, the ridge tops, the ranges in the central mountains. We'll probably end up with some lighter accumulations, maybe a little more spotty versus widespread over the Snake Plain and also across the bench areas from Rexburg down to Burley. You can see those winds out there. They're turning certainly more out of the northwest. And where they're draining out of the central mountains, some gusts over 30. Also, those 30-mile-an-hour gusts across the Treasure Valley down into the southern and into the South Hills and the Albion Mountains. That trend continues into tomorrow evening. Now, what's this going to look like if it's going to rain or if we take that snow and melt it? Not much. A lot of areas seeing definitely over 1/10 of an inch of precipitation, rain or snow melt. You see where we get into the heavier band, we're talking about 1/10 to 1/4 in the lower elevations. Some places 1/4 to 1/2, but once you get into the southeast highlands, the eastern highlands, the Tetons, we're talking amounts in excess of 1 inch. 1 to 1.5 inches is not out of the question. We might peak at 2 over on the south end of Yellowstone up towards Lionhead as well, and certainly into portions of southwest and south central Montana, some higher amounts of precipitation are expected. Temperatures for today, we've seen these 60s and 70s for a while. You notice they're not there. 20s and 30s in the mountains. We might eke out a few low 50s this afternoon. That's stretching it quite a bit over the lower elevations for this afternoon. For tomorrow morning, temperatures at or below freezing pretty much everywhere across our area. Stanley, Copper Basin down into the single digits above 0. Temperatures tomorrow, we're not looking at any 50s across the area. That 49 is showing that might again be stretching it. So 20s and 30s in the mountains, 40s in the lower elevations. And there we talked about Monday morning being really cold. Teens and 20s are going to be very common. The really cold spots, those higher elevation cold spots, single digits to around 10 below 0 for Monday morning. We're going to try to warm up a little bit during the afternoon on Monday. And you notice the trend. It does warm up a little bit more in the mornings, especially across the lower elevations of the Snake Plain down into the southern highlands. And that's because we have a little more cloud cover those mornings, but you'll notice high temperatures really don't change much. You'll notice Wednesday afternoon, the next storm coming in, we're not going to really warm up much during the day. So again, our rain and snow has arrived. The winds will be there, not as strong as today, but they will be there. Probably some blowing snow in the mountains. We continue to have winter storm warnings in effect for the central mountains, the eastern highlands, the southeast highlands, for 8 to 14 inches above 7,000 feet, lesser amounts as you get lower. Above 7,000 feet, they'll be a little bit higher. We are looking at some light snow by tonight elsewhere. We'll be watching a convergence band across the Snake Plain overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. We get a break, but more rain and snow is coming off and on through most of next week. Have a great day, have a great weekend, and please stay safe out there, everyone.